the one shots. Oh, that's right, all the one
three
shots.
episodes a week, 3 shows a week.
Yeah.
More or less for going for, what, about a year and a half?
Yeah, it's been,
We started in August of 2019. That was our first stream.
Yeah, so we'll be coming up.
I mean, when you count for the
time off and missed sessions and weeks, vacations and all that. All right, we're live on audio, and we should have folks popping in here any second now. And double check all of our views. I think I've got everything set up. It's nice to start with the pastoral music for an LMA instead of the typical ominous music we have on our streams. All courtesy of Adrian von Ziegler, who I reference often. Fantastic free music available on his YouTube channel. License free, and he's awesome. Hey, good to see you. Amanda's in. Josh is in. Thank you very much, both of you, for joining us tonight. And hang on here one second. Let me pull something up.
Oh, it sounds like...
And how are the rest of us coming in?
Very crunchy audio.
Crunchy. That's not a fun
granola.
Audio is off?
This is the first time I've been described as granola.
Audio is... Oh, hold on.
They're saying it's mostly you.
My XR18 is blown out. There we go. All right.
Oh, we sound good thing.
Yeah, there we go. That should be... How's that sound now? Is that better?
I think you're clipping.
Yeah, I shouldn't be now. I think I found the culprit. Does that sound better now, crew?
John, much better.
Much better, Josh said. Volume-wise is better, but still crunchy.
Still crunchy, but still odd.
What does crunchy mean? Crunchy. All right. Well, let me check something here.
I'm glad Amanda can join us tonight. Out of all the Blue Box events, I am most excited for the painting.
Mm-hmm.
I know, that'll be fun.
All right, well, let me switch mics then. If I can sort that out later. I don't want to distract tonight. I'll have to go back and listen for what crunchy audio sounds like.
Oh, he's saying it sounds like you're chewing on your mic. Is what KAO sick.
Yeah.
But they're saying you sound better. Okay, yeah, you're good.
It sounds better?
That's what, yes, people are confirming. I think he was just giving, or he or she, K-Sick, was just giving context.
Okay. Is it better or is it not better? Do I need to switch mics?
I think they seem
most
like
people
you're
seem
good.
like it's good.
I think it's just the delay that was getting us there. So we were getting old intel.
Okay. All right. Hey, thank you so much, Lowry. All right. Well, I have compressors and all that. It still has some distortion. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, how about now? Does that sound better?
Oh, that is clear as day.
Amazing.
Interesting. I don't know what's going on with that. Well, I'll sort that out later. That is actually, I just turned off the better mic and I'm on the lesser mic now, but so be it. It's about the result.
Ah, yes, the lesser mic.
All right, good. I'm glad it's improved. And let's go ahead. Pad draws. I will get. Why go away? What's that about? Why is he saying go away?
He says when you change to the screens, it normally gets better.
Oh. All right, and here we go. Let's kick it off live. 3, 2, and 1. All right, welcome everyone, and good Wednesday evening to you here at the busy Blue Box crew. We are now in stream number 5 in the last 4 days, including our wrap-up stream with Lord Gazumba on Sunday night after the charity stream. And I am joined by a great cast tonight on our topic of the evening, which is bringing new players to D&D. Now, like any Blue Box LMA, I'm sure we're going to range into other topics, but we want to make sure we also get some questions from the audience tonight. We may do some polls. So if you guys have thoughts, we're really going to try to watch the chat, and I'm going to enlist Evelyn, who's always so good at that, but Robert can help as well. So I'm going to give the two of you, I'll try to do it myself, but between the three of us, we should be able to make sure we catch most questions. We have had LMAs in the past where people posted questions and we missed it. That's never intentional. We're not purposefully editing any questions out. We just sometimes miss them when we're going through the discussion. All right. So again, thank you so much for being with us tonight. I am joined by 4 great folks tonight. All of them should be familiar to you. And let's start off tonight with the introductions. And go ahead, Evelyn, my partner in crime here at Blue Box. Go ahead and say hi to everybody and tell them anything you'd like to tell them.
Hello, everyone. I'm Evelyn. You would know me as Teacher Evie here in Twitch, as well as on Instagram and Twitter, and in our Discord. I am here on Blue Box 3 times a week. I play in the Rune Lord campaign, in the Greyhawk Awakening campaign, and I'm here on LMA every week. I'm also on Machik ED, that's Terry. He plays Taldar right now in Book 2. I'm on his channel on Monday nights, playing Pathfinder 2e. And that's at, let's see, 9:15 Eastern, 8:15 Central Time. And yeah, that's me. That's it.
Outstanding. And if you aren't aware, she also helps a lot with the Discord. She's in there. She's one of my primary mods, and she posts most of our social media content as well. So her fingerprints are all over what we do here at Blue Box. Thank you so much, Evelyn. Let's go to Cameron, our newest Blue Boxer that is streaming with us tonight. She has been on 2 or 3 streams with me now. Cameron, 3, 2, something like that.
I think this would be my 4th.
Yeah, okay, this would be your 4th.
Second Loremasters, and then just had second actual gameplay.
Great. So just tell us a little bit about you, Cameron.
Yeah, I'm Cameron, just plain Cameron, over in the Discord and over on Instagram as well. You want to check out what I do over there? I post about nothing of importance, but I don't do too much. I'm a grad student right now, looking to become a clinical mental health counselor and fuse my love of tabletop gaming and that together to hopefully put it into a therapeutic setting one day, maybe. Who knows? That's a loose plan. But yeah.
It sounds like a good plan. And I want to be clear, when she said just plain Cameron, that's literally her Instagram and her username on her socials. It's just plain Cameron, all one word. All right, let's go to Chandler. You know him, you love him, or perhaps you hate him as Markov.
Yeah, hey, Chandler, I have another Twitch, Mr. Grantler. We have very different content. Usually something to do with strategy and teaching history, as well as the best sport, golf.
Which is not a sport.
But I do play on the Rune Lords cast on Sundays as Markov, the usual lance and heel of the group. It's a lot of fun. Definitely catch us on Sundays. And I do other stuff around Blue Box, like play on Monster of the Week, and I do these LMAs. So it's a lot of fun. All of my Instagrams are either Mr. Grantler or Chandler _ Son of Peter, if you really feel obliged. But I'm excited to talk about all the stuff we have today.
Great. Thank you, Chandler. And he has been a revelation at Blue Box to find local roleplay talent like that. It's been fantastic. And I have Thomas Roberts, who plays Alcott on our Sunday Rune Lord stream, for bringing Chandler to the table to play with us. Now, this vagabond showed up on my stream tonight. I'm not really sure who he is, but he had a Blue Box sweatshirt on, so I thought I'd let him come on. Introduce yourself to us.
Hi, so I'm Robert, Phantom NJ in the Discord, and Phantom NJ _ D&D on Twitter. When I'm not here abusing John on LMAs and schooling him in the proper use of anti-paladins, you can find me on Friday nights in the Discord laughing hysterically at the shenanigans of my players during Friday Night Crusades. I also have been streaming Monday nights on my own channel, mostly doing It could be anything. Sometimes it's character creation for one-shots. Sometimes it's working on Castles and Crusades, specialty classes. And this Sunday, I am going to be doing a Traveler Takeover on Time Lord Wife's channel at 1:30 p.m. Pacific time.
11:30?
Yeah, so after you're done enjoying Rune Lords...
No, it's 3:30, yeah.
After you're done enjoying Rune Lords, come on over, and I'll be running a Castles and Crusades one-shot. I've met the party, and the shenanigans will be plenty.
Outstanding. So we will definitely be raiding into you that day. And thanks for everybody that's jumped in the chat. We see Manda, Sinekin, good to see you. Hey, MJ Russell, good to see you as well. That's the role player that Jay stole from me. I commonly joke about that. And we're talking tonight about bringing new players into D&D. So let's jump right into the topic. We've got about an hour on this tonight. We're going to try to extend LMA close to 7 o'clock Central Time to give Jay, Lord Gazumba, time to get back from the airport with his wife, and we're going to raid into him. So as we talk about bringing new players to D&D, I think it's first worth noting there's never been a better time. If you rewind the clock, for those of us with a bit of gray, there was a time where you were a pariah if you played D&D. It was very much socially unacceptable. You had covert D&D groups. It was something of an underground thing at times, and that has really evolved through the decades, but I don't think there's ever been a time it has accelerated in acceptance the way that it has in the last 10 years. Robert, would you agree with that?
It's kind of funny because I was the shy kid anyway. So, I had found a couple of the kids on my block who were interested. But beyond that, if there were other people playing D&D, I had no idea who they were. Other than really for a lot of time, it was just my brother and myself. And that basically stayed that way with maybe one or two exceptions until I got to high school.
Right, and I think where the social stuff really kicks in hard is in middle school and high school. But you're right, you make a good point. You don't know how many other people were playing D&D. Now, certainly, I had friends, and I was fairly open about it, but it's just different today. And one of the great things about that is how many players that you have. And when you have lots of players, what else do you get, Chandler?
You have lots of players, what else do you get?
Yeah, when you have
a lot. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, yeah, lots of players, you get a lot more what?
Engagement, hopefully.
Okay, but let's think macro. When you have a lot more players globally or across the U.S., what's a benefit of that?
Well, typically it's easier to find parties.
That's a great one. So you can find more people playing, easier to find parties. What else?
Yeah. I've found that I can talk about it, and it's usually taken. Everybody's heard of it now. So it's taken as something cool to do, which is surprising. From when I was in high school, I did not get that reaction.
Or even just like normal. Like if you tell someone that, they're like, oh yeah. Like the same way that they might react to you like playing Settlers of Catan or something. Like it's just very like, oh, okay, cool. Like nobody's like, gross.
Yeah. I feel like I'm not hitting your punchline on the
No, you're actually making my point for me. So this is like asking someone who is born into abundance what the benefit of being born into abundance is. It's so hard to imagine a world that didn't have it. When you have a lot more players, everything you said is true. Better community, more people to play with, easier to find groups, more socially acceptable. But there's some very tangible things. More money being poured into the game, which means more products being produced for the game. The stuff I have all over my walls, the minis that I can get, I think it was Josh Iculus in the chat said, I like that he can walk into any bookstore and pull D&D stuff off the shelf. People are making content for terrain, all the terrain, Dwarven Forge, all the stuff. You could not imagine all of this existing in 20, 30 years ago. You could find the stuff. It was so hard to find, and now we have just this amazing plethora of fun stuff to game with that we didn't have back then. So anyway, that's my get off my lawn moment. All right.
Are you basically saying it's like the boom towns in California where people go for gold, but then all this other stuff gets set up around it?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
It's kind of funny. I was actually lucky enough at a certain point to find out that there was a gaming shop in one of the malls that was just a bus ride away, and so I actually had access just as I got my first paper out. I had access to gaming materials, and it was amazing. It was
Yeah.
like,
yeah. I remember the first time I walked into a Walden Books and they had D&D stuff. Now that's a name that I just threw out that probably 90% of you don't know what that is.
John, I just aged 10 years.
Mechaform had the best comment so far I've seen in chat. He said the biggest difference between now and then is less time getting stuffed into high school lockers. All right. So let's talk about why then. If there is a plethora of players or so many people out there playing, why do you want to tell your friends about the game? Why would you want to introduce it to other people, maybe family members or friends? Let's go to you, Cameron. You're doing it right now. Why?
I think something for me that has been really cool is your friends, especially and especially in the day and age where it is more acceptable to talk about D&D. They're going to hear you talk about it, and they might start asking some questions about it and being like, maybe I might be interested in that. And I know, at least for me, I was thinking about this the other day, actually, of my friends have brilliant minds that possess so much creativity that I'm like, let me get in there. Let me see what's going on in there. And I've had that happen before where my sweet, sweet roommate, I was talking to her about a one-shot I was going to be in. And she was helping me come up with a name for a character, and I was like, that's so good. I love that. Conversations that we ended up ended up making their way and shaping and forming that character.
Would that be this character right here, Zinnia Meadowwisp?
No, that would be Tallulah Roosevelt.
Oh, and the other one shot. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
We had a lot of conversations about loss and dying, and I was like, it was very heavy, good conversations, but it ended up melding into this character. And I was like, wait, but what if I didn't do it? What if you did it? And she has put together this amazing fairy grave cleric that she's going to be playing in a game. And I was like, man, this is such a fun thing that she's really formed. And so getting to see people that you love put forth their creativity into a realm that you're familiar with can be just really, really cathartic, I think is maybe the word I'm looking for.
I love that. I love that. What about you, Robert? Why do you I see you bring new people into the game all the time.
It's kind of funny, John, we're similar age, and I happen to work in an industry where I'm a geek. I'm surrounded by geeks. I mean, that's basically the people who are drawn to it. So, yeah, I just don't stop talking about it. I'm at the point where I really, all the times I was quiet about it as a kid, I don't care anymore. It's I play the game. I enjoy the game. I'm not going to apologize for enjoying the game. And you talk about it often enough. People, Cameron kind of alluded to it. You get people interested, and you find out that hey, they might have an interest. Listen, you want to play? I might put a game together this weekend. Let's have some fun. If you don't know, I'll teach you. If you do know, even better. Great.
Awesome.
But it's gotten easier because now, it's true now. The stigma isn't nearly as there what it was back then. And again, with age, I really just I could care less what people think about it. That helps.
Yeah. No, it certainly does help. And again, I think that's become a lot easier. We're getting stuffed into fewer lockers. But what about you, Chandler? Who introduced you to the game, first of all?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was to D&D. It was a dad of my friend who just said, I used to play it way back in the day, and then he got me the red box for 4th edition. And say what you want about 4th edition, but it was a really, really fun box to just kind of explore. And as a kid with too much time on their hands, it was just great to delve into those books and just learn about them. So that's how I got into it personally. Somebody kind of mentored me into it, and it was a fun environment. A lot of the people that I kind of got into it were in college, And the funny thing is, most of them would come to me because I was not quiet about my love of games. So I would become known as the tabletop gaming guy in the different groups in college that I was in. And you have some people that go to college and like, well, I've heard about D&D, and you do D&D, so will you DM a game? And finding the time for that and trying to serve as other people's mentor into the nerdy world.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. Evelyn, Elliot, do you want to say?
I think I've talked a little bit about just generally like how I got into D&D before, but yeah, I mean, getting new players is always great, especially like if you can get your friends interested in it, because then you get to spend more time with your friends doing fun stuff together, and that's always a great thing. But like, I mean, I think anybody who is really interested in like the various like it's interesting, especially when you discover people who you wouldn't necessarily expect to be into this sort of thing, because especially if you actively are showing interest in talking about like you playing it, you find people that you wouldn't necessarily expect, like, oh, D&D, I've heard good things about that, it looks kind of cool, I've watched this real play game, or I've watched this real play game, could you show me how to play? And so like getting more people that way is, just to discover people that might not be brave enough to seek that out on their own, but you are kind of their gateway to getting into that and discovering something that they might enjoy, and that's always a good thing.
Yeah.
No, I think well said. Sorry, go ahead,
Oh,
Cameron.
sorry.
No, please go ahead.
I was just gonna say one small, sweet, like almost secret gem of like getting your friends into D&D is, I think, like, we've all noticed that like when you character create, sometimes you might end up tipping your hat and putting a little bit of yourself in that character.
Yeah, that's right.
And looking for those veins in your friends' characters is so delightful.
Oh, I love that, Cameron. What a great point.
It's like deeply heartwarming to see like, oh wow, I don't even know if you know that you did that, but like I can see you in this certain role play or something like that. But it makes me like lose my mind as a DM. I'm like, you got it. You understand what's happening here.
And remind me, earlier this stream you said you were in psychology, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's not surprising then.
Yeah.
I see how it connects. Okay.
Kind of fits, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I'm tipping my hat too far now.
No, I love that. So the common thread here is it's the friendship, it's the social interaction, and I think you'll find that playing D&D with people, you can develop a deeper sense of social interaction than you're going to get from a game of mini golf or going bowling. Or there are very few things that you can do that will create the depth of social connection that playing this game will with a group of friends. Now, when you get a little bit on in life, and let's say you have kids, there can be a whole other set of reasons why you introduce them to the game. So for me, I started playing the game because I had a bunch of friends and it was cool and we loved it and we played it all the way up until I briefly fell victim to the satanic panic, which is going to be a future LMA we're going to talk about. But then when I got back into it about 15 years ago, it was because of my kids. I started thinking back to what this game gave me, which I really think can be ascribed to a lot of my love of reading, communication, being able to present to people, creativity, imagination, all these things which playing this game is uniquely, I think, crafted to encourage in young people. And I'll tell you, we had some of the sweetest times as a family with my little kids playing this game together as they grew up, campaigns that went on for 7 years, all the way up to the time Lexi left for college. And, that final session, I've talked about it before on the stream, super emotional and really sort of became the culmination of an era in our family. These are memories that will last a lifetime. So whether you're creating them with your high school friends or your college friends or your family or what we've created at Blue Box, I have now this extended family of folks, the thing we're often calling a community, and we are forging relationships and memories that will last a lifetime. And it's just it's a fantastic glue and bonding. So there are plenty of reasons. My point is why you want to get people involved in D&D. So I encourage you, go out there and evangelize. If you're here for Blue Box Con, we're going to have little business cards that we're going to give you that you can hand out with a QR code. If you want to talk to people about Blue Box, you'll be able to just hand them out and say, here, just check this out. And the QR code will take them right to the Twitch channel, take them right to the Instagram site. So finding ways to just make it easy to introduce people. All right, so what am I missing in chat, Evelyn?
We don't really have any questions yet.
All right, great. So let us know if you have any questions or if I'm missing anything super funny, because I always do. Yeah, like a chick track. That's right, Steve. Blue Box chick track.
That's exactly what I was thinking of.
They've made a movie of it now, an Amazon movie that is a very faithful adaptation, but it plays like comedy nowadays.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I'll have to check that out. All right, so now let's get into how do you introduce them. Now, Cameron, you already started tipping the hand on this a bit. You talked about convincing your friends. So let me show. This is from a blog. The blog is whatnerd.com. So giving credit to the source, whatnerd.com. They had this neat little blog. And the first thing, obviously, is talk about D&D occasionally. You don't have to blitz people with it. You don't have to hit them in the face with it all the time. Sounds like maybe Robert does. But if you just talk about it occasionally, that's a great way to do it. Sharing content, videos on YouTube. We have so much access now, whether it's Critical Role or you can send them to your favorite Twitch channel, hint, hint, or wherever else you want to send it. There's all kinds of stuff you can explain to. Volunteer to be the dungeon master. If you're an experienced DM, get a few people together. And I think really any of you right now on channel with me, you could DM. You could get a group of your players together and DM. And then compare D&D to things they like. So if they have a wrestling fan, talk about how they can create larger-than-life characters. Someone that likes video games, maybe Skyrim or Fallout. Let's talk about that one for a second. So what are the kinds of things that you could talk about with your friends to help sort of compare if you're trying to explain D&D for the first time and maybe they haven't heard of it and they don't know what it is? What would you do? Chandler?
Yeah, so just to clarify, you're saying if they haven't played Skyrim or anything, how would I try and relate it to what they might know?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that one's interesting. I think the biggest thing is improv and a little bit of theater, or maybe a few of those family games that you buy from Target that kind of get everybody acting a little bit, because those are easier analogs for those people. And they say, oh, well, those are fun, and those usually come with prompts, right? So maybe early on, as in their career, you can prompt them a little bit more with that. But those things kind of associate positive things with D&D. They say, well, oh, okay, I like those things. I think I could give this a shot. And then maybe you hold their hand through the early part of it and maybe make a character sheet with them or for them. That way you can get past the math and they can learn the math on the back end, and they can do the things that you promised, which is the improv and kind of the fun family part of it, right?
Well, so let me ask you that. So the family I get, but like the words like theater and improv scare the living bejesus out of some people.
Some people it does.
So
it depends on your audience.
Exactly.
Like who you're pitching it to.
Yeah.
And I think that in the whole realm of like pitching D&D, my advice is find the person's key before you enter into that conversation. Like if they're strong into the realm of video games, find some things you can pull from there. If I think, who was it? Rudolph Movo over in chat mentioned something about Marvel movies and saying that they're like long-term D&D campaigns.
Yeah,
and
right.
Like, I have talked about friends in terms of like, hey, what are power sets that you think are really cool? And they're like, oh, I think like shape-shifting's really neat, like, Beast Boy from Teen Titans or whatever. Like, and I'm like, well, maybe you could play as a druid. Come in with those, like, your friends, your family, these people well. So like, dig past maybe like, if they're not into the Lord of the Rings, go to somewhere else. Like there's gonna be something that you can pull from, because a lot of like newer things that people might end up loving have their roots in the fantasy realm if you spiral back far enough.
Yeah, I think no. Sorry, go ahead, Chandler.
I was going to say, great point. It just shows the kind of people that I usually have to pitch the game to.
That's it.
Mine. And I guess the lesson there is just be adaptable, right? So that was my wheelhouse, and you gave a great example of the superhero fans, and that'd be fun to do a superhero role play as well.
Yeah,
Sure.
There's some great games out there for that. I think those are good. And look, there's so many common media, whether it's Lord of the Rings you've already mentioned, and this is, I think, part and parcel why the game has become so much more accepted. It's everywhere now. Maybe they've watched The Witcher. Maybe they've watched probably Wheel of Time is a newer and more esoteric one, but you have Game of Thrones, which was the #1 show on HBO for the better part of 7 years. And these were cultural phenomena that I think have really just sort of insinuated the concept of fantasy into the social consciousness here in America that in a way it didn't exist before. So there are all kinds of ways I think you can tie to people, but to Cameron's point, know your audience and understand what they like and then give them those comparatives. Anything else from Robert or Evelyn on that point? I know we have a question, Robert, which I'm going to let you ask that in a second. I like Kelsick's question. Anything else on this topic?
So I was going to say, I mean, if they do play video games, do they play MMOs? I mean, I played World of Warcraft for a long time, and one of the main complaints I've heard from one of the complaints I heard from a lot of people I played with was the fact that the story, they may not be enjoying the story at a certain point. It's like, well, what if you could play this kind of game and make your own stories? You're not limited to what you're given. Find
Thanks,
out
MJ.
to social with.
Yeah, no, exactly.
But yeah, there's, I mean, the Marvel movies, that's a great one. Lord of the Rings, and you touched on The Witcher. There's always something that you can relate it to. Some takes a little more work than others, but there's so much out there now, especially with all the streaming. All the different stream shows on all the different stream networks, that you can always find something that's popular.
Right, exactly. All right, what do you want to ask Chaosic's question?
Yeah,
Okay.
So Chaos Gas, for those people who are not proficient with 5e, and he mentions that she knows that you run a mix of editions with with 5e. What advice could you give to those people who might want to audition for a player spot? Is a strong sense of RP enough to get a foot in the door, or would it disrupt the session too much for someone acclimating to rules they don't normally use?
Fantastic question. Obviously, this is in my wheelhouse, but thank you for that question, Benjamin. Who else would like to take the question? Go ahead, Evelyn.
So as far as playing in a game, it really depends on your DM and the group that they're trying to make, and the other people you're playing with, as far as how strong your RP has to be at all, because some games are more RP focused than others are. I mean, it is a tabletop RPG, and a lot of people really lean into the RP side, but some games are more combat focused. So first of all, when you're looking for a group, kind of know what you're looking for as far as what kind of game you want to play in. Do you want to play a more RP heavy game, or do you want to play a more combat focused game, or do you want something that's a bit of balance of both? Because those are things to consider when you're approaching people either through Discords or through your local friendly gaming shops that have games that meet there, or just playing with friends. Kind of have an idea of what type of game would you want to play. And then as far as knowing the rules, I have played with people and I have been a player myself coming into an established group where I didn't know any of the rules of the game. And in a group, especially where you have players that have been playing for a while and your DM as well, they will help you through this. Even if you do not have to know every single rule in the book. I still have to look up so many spells. I have to, and when I'm DMing, I regularly pull out the rule book and double check things, and that just happens as you play. It's really hard to memorize every single rule, and if you play multiple different editions, it's even harder to memorize, because then you're like, was that a 5e rule, or was that a 3.5 rule, or was that a 1e rule? I could just, or that version of the spell is this version. Wait, what? No, wait, was, or so you're constantly having to think of those various things. So I would say, if you want RP, and you're nervous about or you want to play D&D at all or any other tabletop RPG, and you're nervous about knowing the rules part, don't worry about that so much. You'll come in, you'll get help from the other people at the table, you'll get help from your DM, and if you want to look into the rules, it's always a good thing. But no one's going to be like, oh, you suck because you don't know all these rules. It's about having fun at the end of the day.
And Robert, I know you want to talk to this point. I'm going to address sort of a tangential element to this, and I'll come back to you. Some people never really want to know the rules. Take Jennifer as an example. She's played the game for 15 years. She doesn't know how to find her feet. She doesn't know, she still gets help from everybody at the table, but she has fun playing. She just comes to play the character. She does like rolling the dice. She gets excited. She gets into the game. But that's one end of the spectrum. The opposite end of the spectrum is a Chandler. Chandler wants to know every single rule. Thomas wants to know every single rule. Thomas he's got his book, he's got all his spells printed out, he's researching, he's cross-comparing, he's coming in with hypotheticals on the spells and how they could be used, and that's his passion, and that's part of the game. People can explore and immerse themselves in the rules to whatever extent they like. Some people just like sitting and reading the rule book. Some people like to read every page of a monster manual or every page of a DM's guide. That's fine. Other people don't want to do that, and that's fine. Go ahead, Robert.
And
So,
Robert, then
you go ahead,
Cameron.
Robert.
so yeah, I mean, between Evelyn and John, I mean, all the great points. Addition bleed is a term you'll hear. It's basically what Evelyn described. All the different rule sets, trying to keep everything straight. I will freely admit that I've been running games for 40 years. I have no idea what the rules are half the time anymore. I have to look everything up. But the other part of it is have a conversation with the dungeon master beforehand. Have that, because the person may know that the party may be okay with the people that are playing may be okay with someone who wants to role play, and because role playing, I mean, that's more free form. It's but as far as rules, there's some parties that might be frustrated by someone who doesn't know the rules, and maybe a better session. Have that conversation beforehand, because they should hopefully have a better handle on finding the right game for you. I would hope that experienced players would always help out a new player. Yeah. I am not going to say that always happens. Some players can get frustrated if somebody doesn't know what they're doing at all, and it's not the greatest situation in the world, but it's reality. So have that conversation. Have it beforehand, and the other thing to remember is not every game, there's thousands of dungeon masters running thousands of different types of games and different rule sets. Not all of them are the same. So one of the things you're going to want to have that conversation anyway, to get an idea of, is this person who's running this game offering the kind of game that you're looking for? Go ahead and play. Try things out. You may find things that you didn't think you were going to like that you enjoy, or didn't even realize were a possibility. But don't be afraid to try things, but also understand that if your first experience isn't the greatest, try another game with a different group.
Well said. So I know we could go further on this point. We got so much more to get through. Chandler, did you have something compelling? I don't want to cut you off.
You can pitch this one down the road. I just kind of wanted to turn the question on its head a little bit, because we're talking about players, right? New people to D&D, and I'm thinking, okay, what if somebody new comes in and they're like, this is super cool. I'd love to be the DM. But you're still helping them through, right? Maybe you'd be a player for them or something. And we can pitch that question later in the session, or maybe there's another LMA for that. But I thought that is
I've actually done that. I did that. Heck, my son Jordan, when he was 16, I encouraged him to DM a game for the first time, and you help them through it and you walk them through it. But I want to come back as we finish Benjamin's question. I know we spent some time on this, but I'm watching the chat response, and people are resonating with this. Even experienced players are resonating with this fear that I don't know enough about the rules. Let me disabuse you of that notion. If you watched, for example, Jay, Lord Gazumba, he is the perfect example of someone who has played a specific system for 4 decades. He knows virtually every one of those rules because he's been immersed in that same system forever. When you switch between different systems, different game styles, inevitably you're expanding the number of variables that you have in what you're doing. And I'm just like Robert. At this point, I've played so many systems for so long. My core is 3.5. 3.5 is a very rules crunchy system. It's often called Mathfinder when you play Pathfinder. And if you watch me stream, I run this channel. I have to look rules up all the time. I have to double check myself. Now, wait a minute. Is that a 3.5? Is that a 5e? Is that a 1e, 2e? Which one am I using in my game? Because I sort of amalgam these. So no one should be afraid to jump in because they don't know enough rules. Hey, Tim, I got your shirt on here.
Yeah.
Don't blame me. Tim made me do it. But to answer, I think, your original question is, reach out to that DM and ask to audition, ask to play. If it's a Discord DM or a Twitch DM, message them. There's no harm in asking. And they may say, hey, I don't have any slots open right now or whatever, but don't put the shame in your game to not ask just because you don't have a lot of experience. Okay, quickly, last couple things on getting to get people in. I thought this was a kind of a fun one from this little blog. Bait them with free food and drinks. There's going to be pizza. There's going to be beer. There's going to be, whatever. Not for the high schoolers. Get them into the game with some fun stuff that people like. Make it feel very social. Providing pre-made characters. That's a great way to do it. And then take it slow and don't be pushy. So all kinds of ideas on ways that you can get people in. Now, once you've got them in, how can you make it easy and fun for them? Before we answer that question, let me ask the panel here, have any of you ever had a bad experience in a D&D game with a group, with a situation? Go ahead, Chandler, to start with you. That seemed like a no-brainer.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on what you mean by bad, but I guess I can hit all those, right? Just different experiences when you play long enough. People that come in and it seems like it's a hassle for everybody to be there, right? You're trying to have fun, but if the DM comes in and they're stressed out,
dying sucks.
It seems, and they're more so than stressed out. It's like they're sighing as they open up the rule book and respond to your questions, and they are pushing through. It's like a chore. Those aren't super fun. Those are I would classify those as a bad time. No judgment on anyone involved in those. You have good days and bad days. But it's bringing the energy you want to see in others. There.
Well said. Cameron, you obviously resonated with this when I asked the question.
Yeah, definitely had some played with people who have said my character is the main one and everyone else is secondary.
Stand aside, I am here.
It's like, okay, or just like kind of refusing to listen to like DM's rulings and different stuff like that, and have had to be DM for that person as well as like played next to them, and that it can certainly be frustrating.
Yeah, and that last point, that's a good discussion for our next sort of DM discussion roundtable, handling players that want to argue rules. And it's a fine line because you do want players to have a sense of interest in the rule set, and you don't want to make them feel like it's just completely an iron fist. At the same time, you don't want to distract from the rest of the folks at the table, and you got to push the game along. So people that are going to rules lawyer can really ruin the game. But all right, so those are some examples of bad experiences, and so we want to make sure we don't provide those kinds of bad experiences to new players. We want to create an environment for them that they enjoy, they have a good time, want to entice them in. So what are some ways that we can make that first session and those first few sessions more fun, more engaging for a new player? Let's start with you, Robert.
So, I mean, I think the first thing, if they're completely, utterly brand new, is take some time beforehand and talk to them about the different classes. Get a feel for what it is, speaks to them, what kind of character they'd like to play, and make make a couple. I wouldn't say just one. Just don't say that's the one that you want to play. Give them a couple. Give them some of the options and give them an idea of what each of them brings to the table, and let them make that choice. So they have their first character is something that resonates with them. It's something that it's a character that hopefully, will get them feeling comfortable quickly and speak to them. It's something that they'll become more immersed quickly.
Exactly. So that's actually point number 2 on this blog. And again, to give them credit, this is the 3 wise DMs. And their point number 2 is have them pick a character that they can handle. And I think corollary to that is that they like. This goes back to Cameron's example, right? If they like Marvel and they think this particular Marvel character is cool, help them craft a character with the race, class, specifications, feats, whatever, that matches that. Go ahead. Continue on, Robert. All right, so Cameron, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, as a DM, one of the most helpful things you can do is you're coming in with a lot of technical jargon that your new players are not going to get. So find a way to simplify everything down. So like saying like, hey, do you want your character to have like a really cool sword, or do you want them doing magic? And then you kind of separate instead of being like, do you want to be melee or do you want to be like ranged magic? Just simplify it down as much as possible. And then from there be like, do you want your magic to come from like years of study? Do you want it to be because you're just born that way?
Yeah.
Do you want it to be like a holy magic? Do you want it to be like this kind of magic? Or like, do you want to be fighting people with your fists? Or do you want to have like a super cool bow? Like, just find those ways to cut out all that technical jargon that you've worked so hard to learn and pare it down to someone. I think that is a really key thing of like,
that's great.
Find ways to make it easy.
And when you do that, you don't just simplify it, you trigger the imagination. You get them thinking, oh, I could be like this, or I could be like that. If they have seen, do you want to be Gimli, or do you want to be Legolas, or do you want to be Aragorn, or do you like what? Not that you're going to have that power, but the sort of style of character. Robert, I cut you off. Why don't you finish your thought on this?
Yeah.
No, I think Cameron touched on really most of it. It's everything that you can do ahead of time to get the person ready to play and understanding their character. I mean, basically, and just to the technical jargon point, work on the character sheet with them. If even to the point of putting it together with the information that they give you. So, because the character sheet, especially in 5e, I realized that D&D Beyond's a wonderful tool. For a new player, it can still be it's information overload, especially now that we're this far in with all the options. You're just their mind is gonna be blown. They're going to paralysis by analysis.
Right.
Work with them. If you help them build the character with the understanding that if it's something that they find that they really don't like, we can fix that later.
Yeah,
it's not a big deal.
No,
it's your first character. We can take care of that.
No, that's really well said, Robert. If you look back, I had Fraley 17, Patrick's. I had all of his character sheets from his childhood. He gave me a packet like this thick from when he was a kid, and he had saved them for all these years, and he let me hang on to them and read through them. And of course, he had Hercules as a name, and he had these ninjas that could it was all kids, but it was so fun. And guess what? All one-page character sheets. You could fit everything on one sheet. You go to, and I agree with you. I think D&D Beyond is one of the things, and tools like it, Pathfinder Nexus. What's the other Pathfinder tool, Evelyn?
RPG Scribe for Pathfinder 1E, and then there's Path Builder for 2E.
Path Builder, that's the one I was thinking of. So you've got the Pathfinder Nexus or Path Builder for 2E. You've got app-based tools like RPG Scribe that are kind of pan system. But, Beyond is such an incredible tool. But yeah, just look at, if I'm a brand new player, okay, that screen's kind of intimidating, but I could get along. But then I look over and I'm like, oh, wait a minute. And then I've got a whole sub-screen here and a whole sub-screen here. And here I've got sub-screens on my sub-screen. And then I've got, all the, it's a lot of information. If you like the game and you like building your character, that's awesome. But if you're a brand new player, this can be intimidating. So I think D&D Beyond is one of the best tools that you have if you're introducing to 5e, but it can still be something that you really have to walk a player through and make it easy for them. One of the suggestions that was made on that previous blog was give them a pre-gen for the first time. I'm not as big on that. Now, if that's what you want to do, great. But again, to me, pre-gen removes some of the player sort of decision-making, agency, creativity that you're trying to engage with them when they feel a sense of ownership for the character. That to me is more fun. What are your guys' thoughts?
Oh, I agree. When you say think of the boundless creativity that you have in D&D, and then you say you will be playing a human fighter level 1, you kind of undermine your own pitch there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Well,
So
sorry, go ahead.
I have a slightly different, because I use pre-gens all the time for one shots, and I've had people come basically brand new to the game. Some of them have been out of it for, they may have a memory of playing 20 years ago but hadn't played since. Not quite completely new, but still. It's one of those things where, again, that early conversation, because sometimes the person may just not know.
Mhm.
And there comes a point where just the idea of playing, some people just want to play.
Mhm.
They're not sure what they're looking for yet. And a pre-gen, especially if you're going to do a one-shot to get them started, have a pre-gen character for them. Give it a run.
Mhm.
Yeah.
See if they enjoy. Are you enjoying the role-playing aspect of it? Do you enjoy the character type? And have that conversation afterward, because there is nothing quite like actual playing. I love getting them invested in a character right off the top if I can. But if they don't know what it is they're looking for, but they know that they want to give this a try, a pre-gen takes that pressure off of them
Mhm.
and gets them playing, gets them rolling dice, gets them having fun, hopefully having fun, because it's going to be that interaction. It's going to be that camaraderie around the table. That is, even if they could have the greatest character world in the world that speaks to them, if they're not, the proof is when they're starting to interact with others, interacting with the DM to find out, are they enjoying this game? And if you're doing a one shot, if they don't like the character, if it turns out that the character is okay, they enjoyed the role play and everything else, but the character didn't quite speak to them.
Yeah.
That's not
Yeah.
a big deal.
Well, yeah, no, I think, Robert, if you were right, I would agree with you. So, no, I'm kidding. No, I think that's a very, if it's a one shot, I think that's a very, very different situation. What I don't want to do is saddle a new player with a pre-generated character in a long-term campaign. That to me is sort of a distinction. I think a one shot's a whole different ballgame. Chandler, we do need to move on, but go ahead. What's your point?
I was just going to say the one thing that I think is important from the DM side of things to try and do if you have all new characters is, for your first session, make sure that every player has the opportunity to use their abilities and class stuff. So whether that's choosing a module that allows it or making that way, because veteran players are going to be okay not interacting in every session to the fullest extent. But new players, you want to give the ability to use the tools that they are saddled with, as we said.
That actually brings up. Oh, go ahead, Cameron. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and if maybe they're still a little bit confused on the abilities that they have, maybe try nudging them towards that of like, call their specific player to make a certain role for something. Of like, hey, so-and-so, as the party's druid, you would have a really deep connection to nature. Give me a nature role. Or like, just call for some things like that. And then they'll look at their sheet and they're like, oh my gosh, I have a +10 in nature. That's crazy. And then ask them to describe something about that. Like, help them, because you're going to come in again with this wealth of knowledge. They're hopefully going to be starting to gather some of those ideas. So help kind of nudge them that ball. I think that's a great point.
No, that's so. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Karen. I love that. It's one of the things I love doing, especially when I bring players into Castles and Crusades, is making sure that they get a chance to show off their character, what their character can do. But one of the things, actually, Chandler, you kind of touched on this. I would never put a new player directly into a published adventure, specifically because I want to be able to have that moment for those players, and I can't guarantee that the published adventure is going to do that for me. So for at least the first couple of eventually do, it's going to be, the adventure itself is going to be homebrewed, just because I want to be able to give them a chance. I want to make sure that that beginning helps me get any of the new players integrated and feeling their character and understanding what their character is and can do and speaks to them.
All right. Well,
before we do anything else.
unsurprisingly, Robert and I completely disagree on this point. I've done many pre-gens, and a pre-gen is not a handcuff. Take a look at our Rune Lords campaign. Our Rune Lords campaign looks nothing like the Rune Lords prepackaged module series. So I take Robert's point. I mean, we kind of have pretend disagreements. It's our shtick. But I don't mind taking something like the Lost Mines of Phandelver and playing that session, and I'll find ways to make sure I add whatever I need to add to make sure those players can shine and have their moments. But that's really your choice as a DM. We do need to keep moving here. So I love this one. Establish a welcoming environment. Now, this can be different if you're playing online, but even online, make sure that if you're the DM, you're there on time. Maybe give a greeting to your players. Make sure it's clear when they're supposed to be there. What are some other things you can do to make an online game a welcoming environment? Rob?
Well, I mean, obviously, just those conversations ahead of time, and getting people to introduce themselves. It should be noted.
The pregame.
One thing we actually hadn't kind of missed is the importance of a session zero. And
that's we got that right here. Yeah, pregame session zero. Yeah, Cameron, go ahead.
I was literally going to say that exact same thing of, I feel like we're talking a lot about a session one. That is all to be said, that a lot of this stuff, like character creation, kind of walking somebody through a character sheet and all that, that should take place in a session zero. And like those initial, like, hey, for example, the first time I ever got pulled into a D&D game, it was mostly with a bunch of other people who I had no idea who they were. I knew one person in the whole group, and there were like a ton of people in it. And so everyone kind of went around, told a little bit about themselves, how they kind of got into this game in the first place, all that jazz. And then we started talking.
Pre-games can be
like,
so much
I
fun.
want to play this kind of character.
Yeah.
Hey, I kind of want to play this kind of character. And it was very brief. And then we started doing sheets, and then everyone just kind of went their own separate way for the rest of the night. Some people stayed on, chatted with the DM for longer because they needed a little more help. And I would always recommend doing a session zero if you've got people who are like pretty serious about it. Granted, like if you've got friends who just want to goof around and like want to play pre-gen characters and like just want to bash swords against some dragon, like that could be different. Maybe you don't need to be like, and tell me about your backstory. Like write me a 1-page thing up. Like maybe you don't need to do that with them. But again, know your audience. And if you have people who want to play in a long-term campaign, have a session zero.
Yeah, no, I think that's very, very important. And session zeros can be so much fun. Now, especially if you're in person, you get together. Again, you've got the proverbial pizza and Mountain Dew or whatever your maybe for you guys it's hummus and pita chips or whatever. But you get to kale. You have kale and distilled water. I think that's a really bad start for a D&D campaign, though. I'm just telling you, you gotta have pizza and Mountain Dew. But anyway, you get together, and it's a very low stress environment because you haven't started the role play yet. So this is really more of a socializing experience, and people are just brainstorming and having fun. There's likely to be a lot of laughter, and that's a great way to get a new group together. Now, if you've got an all remote group, if you can do it, why not send them each a $5 Domino's card or something, so everybody can order pizza beforehand and they can sort of share the moment online. There are ways that you can try to make online feel more in person, but we do need to keep moving. So we've got that. Pre-made characters we've already talked about. And then take it slow and don't be pushy. Oops, I'm skipped the wrong one. Pre-game and then make it fun, right? So these are all some of the keys. We've talked about the different systems here, but I know we have a lot of questions, or at least a few questions that we've not gotten to yet. So Evelyn, can you just mention a couple questions that we have?
I mean, I just have one other that I caught, which was from Rudolph Movo quite a while ago. Asked, do you think the long-term life of D&D will be printed materials when we're online focused, and how does that pull new people in?
Good question.
Interesting.
What do you guys think?
I feel like there's like space enough in the world for both to exist,
Yes.
and I don't see either one burning out anytime soon, because like John was saying earlier, like there is this huge market with like Dwarven Forge and like tons and tons of people on Etsy who are doing this like as their full-time thing. But then at the same time, you've got your footholds of Roll20 and D&D Beyond, and those aren't really going anywhere either. And both are so useful, especially when you're using them together. Like, it's just too sweet. I want both. Like, I gotta have both.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Check the sales of those alternate covers of the D&D books. People buy those things like crazy. They're collector's edition stuff. There's always going to be the physical, because you're not always going to have an internet connection. It's not always going to be online. People want to be able to play. I mean, granted, yeah, it's a heck of a lot easier now to have a tablet or something with you for like D&D Beyond, but that assumes you have an internet connection. So,
Yeah.
There's always room.
Real quick before you go, Chandler, I like Weaponized Eyes comment here. If I drank my Merlot like it was Mountain Dew, the game wouldn't last very long. That's awesome. All right, go ahead, Chandler.
Yeah, I was just going to say, maybe this is my business and marketing degree speaking, but I think online and in person tend to cater to different markets, the different audiences. They are not necessarily substitutes for each other. You have people that are really into the game in the real space to put down toys on the table, and you cannot convince those people to do an online game with the same amount of enthusiasm that they might have if they want to put toys on a table.
Now wait, I agree with you. But so the question was the printed materials or the digital PDF materials. Are you suggesting, Chandler, that the mode or medium of play is synonymous with the preferred delivery of materials? So online players are going to want PDFs and local players are going to want books.
I think it's an it depends answer, and I think that the answer, my rationale, I believe holds true for both, is because you'll have people that just want books, and and that kind of is complementary to Cameron's comment that there is space for both. Thankfully, no one is making us decide to do one or the other definitively.
I don't think. Sorry, go ahead, Robert.
I'm going to take a little issue with the idea that there are two distinct groups.
Yeah.
Because I'm firmly in both camps, and I know I'm not, and I am far from the only person I know who's. I mean, anecdotal evidence is anecdotal, but I'm far from the only.
Everybody on this call is an example.
It's like I mean, I'll play D&D whenever, wherever. Would I love to prefer to play in person? But you know something, you can't always get people to one place. It's a lot easier to do it online, and if that's what it takes, I'm full. All the tools are there to play online.
I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole because this is a whole other discussion. But I will tell you from my perspective, I love both mediums, and they both give a different experience. I look forward to my tabletop games for different things than I look forward to my online games. There is a focus that can be created in a medium like this. Fewer distractions, easier to kind of make eye contact with everybody simultaneously, easier to deliver content in different ways. But there are things about this that I love as well. And so, but the books and the materials, I agree with the point that was made earlier by Robert. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. But you look at the sales of the books and the materials and the alternate covers, and I want both. When I get my materials, I want to have the PDF so I can pull it up on my iPad anytime I want to, and I want to have the book because it looks cool on my shelf. I want to pull it off and I want to feel the physical pages of it. That's the way I want that content delivered. So I think that works in both directions. Very, very good question. Thank you. Any other questions that we've missed in the chat? I want to talk about one other thing on D&D Beyond and then make one final announcement, and then we're going to wrap up and right into Jay. So if you're with us and you're headed over to Lord Gazumba's channel, you can just tell him I said he can wait a couple minutes because he made me slow play my stream tonight because he thought he was going to be late. And then he just messaged me about 15 minutes ago and he got in early. So I'm teasing. We'll get you over there in just a second. With D&D Beyond, there's so many good materials in here for new players. So as an example, if you go, let me go back one screen here. You can go under their materials, their sources, and there's an entire section on new players guides. Everything from choosing your race, how to find people to play with, quick guides, how to make a session 0 work well, homebrew guides. And again, I'm not promoting 5e per se. I'm just saying, I don't care if you're playing 1e. There's a lot of great ideas in here. And if you don't have the stacks of Dragon magazines, or you don't want to go to the Anon Archive, you can come on here. And for example, if you look at the older articles, one of the first ones they did, New Player's Guide to Making Your First Character. And it's got really, really good suggestions. This first one cracks me up. Think of race and class together. What does that remind you of, Rob?
Oh, the old when Elf was a class.
Exactly. Yeah. So in the original D&D, elf and dwarf were both a class and a race. You know, there wasn't an elf mage and an elf fighter. You were an elf, and if you were dwarf, you were your elf, and you were dwarf. So they were together, and this I think really helps people when you come back to this visioning idea. This all the way back to what Cameron was talking about earlier with the Marvel example. When the person sort of identifies with something they think would be fun, help them imagine the race and the class together. That, I think, makes it easier for them as they're building their character. Start small. Basic rules are great. You've got a character that plays well with others. So, yeah, discourage if you've got a party that's going to be good aligned. I'm sorry, I'm not even showing the screen to the viewers. You got a party that's good aligned, but you have somebody go ahead and create a chaotic evil anti-paladin, and it's their first time playing. There's a spot for that, but not for a first-time player. That's just not a good spot to put them in. Using the character builder, helping them with it. That's just one example of an article here on D&D Beyond. Oh, okay. Sorry. Discover card commercial happening. Let me go to my music. Well, thank you so much. That's so helpful.
Wow.
Yeah. I didn't know we could do that. Yeah, they are not a sponsor. Not yet. Okay, so any concluding thoughts from all my incredible group here tonight?
Make your players feel like a star when they sit down for their first time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Go ahead.
That's so good. Of like these, I think anytime that you have people around the table for a first time, take yourself to whenever you were first at the table. You could have been very young. It could have been last week. Take yourself back to that point and remember maybe just the sweat on your hands as you kind of held that character sheet of like, I don't know how to do this right. Like, you as a DM both get to help tell this story, tell a part of this story. And you also get to welcome these people into an experience that could be so crucial for them and so special to them for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, no, it's not
responsibility on your shoulders, but it's something of great beauty and great responsibility. So take that with reverence and like enjoy that too. Like watch them light up as they, unlock a door for the first time.
If this was, you probably don't know what this is, Cameron, if this was part of the interruption, I'd be hitting the button right now and you'd have points racking up on your view right now. No, I'm sorry, I didn't interrupt you. Go ahead, finish your thought.
You have so much power in that moment. And so like wield it well and really welcome those people. And also don't be afraid to, after that first session, talk with your players and ask for their general opinions. And maybe even do it outside of the table, like shoot a text afterwards, like, hey, would you want to do this again sometime? Like, is this something you want to keep doing? Be okay if they don't want to.
Yeah.
It's not going to be for everyone, and that's okay. It can still be a special experience, even if it's just one time. But if they do, they sure did.
Great power comes great responsibility.
I know, Sheet. I know that's gonna be my concluding comment tonight. But that's a mic drop. Go ahead, Robert.
Yeah.
I've got. I mean, to that point, I go even further. When you take a break, check in with your players, especially the new ones. Check in, see how they're doing. And listen. Any feedback that they have, make sure that you're giving that vibe that any feedback is good. Just so you want to find out how they're doing. Are they enjoying themselves? Is there anything that they're not understanding and such? Any way that you can but any way you can help them to have a better time. The other thing is, as a DM, especially when you have brand new players, make sure you are bringing that energy and enthusiasm. If you're having a bad day, if you're having a rough time, if one of your other players is driving you up the wall, don't, of all the times not to let it show, that's it, because you want to make sure that they're going to pick up those vibes from you. You're the one guiding them, helping them guide them through the story. You're the one helping them become a star in the game. You need to make sure you're transmitting that energy to them so that they're picking up those clues from you and they know, yeah, this is how it's supposed to feel.
Yeah, no, well said. Evelyn.
I was going to say, and additionally, because I know that there's a lot of speaking from the DM's point of view, but as your fellow player, encourage these new people that are playing with you. Talk to them outside of the sessions, kind of see what they're about, what they might be interested in the way that you might connect with their character. I spend a lot of time talking to Thomas about what's going on in Rune Lords, so that's something to help your fellow new players get involved more too, is to, as a player, hype them up, give continue to make them feel welcome and make them feel part of it, because it's not, you can't just leave that all to the DM to do for the party. You are a group. The DM is a player too. We have to remember everybody is involved with making these stories happen, and it can't just be all on the DM to make sure a new player feels welcome. We all collectively in these groups around these tables need to make each other feel welcome all the time.
So well said. So as we conclude tonight. Sorry, no, go ahead, Cameron.
Shout out to my original DM who's in the chat right now. Hi, Zach. You're the best.
Hey, Zach.
Anyway, continue.
Hey, Zach, thank you so much for helping prepare this amazing role player. I don't know what you did in the beginning, but it worked. She is incredible. So, just a couple of sort of concluding thoughts on that. We didn't even talk about the role of the veteran player in bringing along the new player. That was a note that I had, but we're running out of time and we need to raid Jay. But that we see that all the time in our games and at our table here. A player will sit, help the character with their character sheet, help them understand the rules, help them know how to look up their saving throw or their feat check, and all the soft skills that Evelyn mentioned. Someone put in the chat, I think it was Cossack, also don't let your mood ruin it for the other players. If you're a veteran player particularly, maybe you had a bad day, try to put that aside and engage at the table, because it's not just about us. If I'm a DM and I've had a bad day, I don't get to come and TPK the party because of that. We did have a couple fun comments that were in the chat associated with that topic. Don't blame me, blame Tim. I believe it was Jeff Siegeland who said, you don't have to worry about it on the point of, if a player is tired of their character after a while, you let them do a new character. If you're playing in one of my games and your name is Josh, you probably don't have to worry about that. And then you also had here, there was one more on this topic.
I'd say Ranger Harley makes an additional point along that line, is encourage the quiet players when you're not as dynamic as others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
The ones that aren't speaking up as much, they still have just as much to say. You just gotta encourage them, give them space to do stuff.
Yeah. Well, as always, the Mad Chatters were mad on fire tonight. Thank you so much, Mad Chatters. We appreciate all the chat and the questions. Thank you to this great panel. Hey, you guys were really, really good. The way you interacted with one another, it took very little prompting. Unfortunately, that's like being a little kid and showing mom you're good with the dishes. You're going to wind up doing it again. So I'm going to be coming back after you guys on a more regular basis. This exact group seems to work quite well together. So thank you to all of you. And with that, I'm going to save my announcement for next time. We're going to raid Jay in 10 seconds. Kicking off the raid now. Again, all Blue Boxers, thanks for supporting us for the last 5 streams over 4 days. Numbers have been off the charts. We were over 70 again tonight for quite some time on a regular Loremasters Arcanum chat. That is a fantastic show of support. Thank you. And also record numbers last night for Greyhawk Awakening. I think one of our, if not our top, our second top stream ever for GHA on a night with no raids, no promotions, just fantastic support from the teams here. And here we go. Everybody, if you haven't followed, if you haven't subbed, if your sub's expired, what are you doing? Please give us a follow. Please give us a sub. Blue Box signing out. We love you. Good night. Hey, we got to follow. SPP 7733.
Great numbers.
Wow.
Great numbers on an LMA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm,
Yeah.
Awesome
we hit
stuff.
70 something a couple times. So
Yeah, I was surprised we popped back up to 70 something about 10 minutes
Yeah.
before Jay normally goes live. That's unusual. So that was really cool. All right, so yeah, we're off live now.
Man, that was so fun. My original DM was there for
That-
almost that whole time.
That is so
It's
cool. I wish you
sweet.
would have told us that
That's
earlier.
the one that I
Yeah.
didn't realize it was him until I was like, that might be Zach. But he was the one who I described online, having everyone go through and kind of introduce themselves. And I was like,
Right.
oh, that's really
Cameron,
Nice.
if you like D&D as therapy, you need to talk with Thomas. He knows about a camp where you can DM
Yeah.
and offer a space for, I think it's kids in need. I don't think it's open to just literally anyone. Might be worth talking to him about, because that might be exactly up your alley.
Yeah, he and I talked about that
probably
last
would be.
year, and it's a really good camp. I would like to participate in it. You just got to find the timing that works. But yeah, he's dead on.
Yeah.
All right, guys, I got to go help my daughter prepare her
Chandler.
report for tomorrow. But thank you, Chandler. Thank you, Cameron. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Evelyn. I hope you guys all have a great night.
Yeah, everyone have a good one. I hope she does well on the report.
Remember, with great power comes great responsibility.
indeed.
Heard that one.
And others are maybe a little bloated. We've got some reservations about them, but we'll get through them.
So, I thought it was a pretty interesting, and I have the map up now in the scroller on how it's broken
there
down.
you go.
Is it good? Is it bad? It's one of those things where, hey, good to see you wandering. It's subjective, right? Just like anything else. But this at least gives you some regional setup on John. Thank you for that. Man, over 2
It's
years.
definitely another way of if you're a writer for Greyhawk, let's say you're doing your own fan work. It's another way of describing regions.
Yeah.
Instead of Keelan, you can say Sheldamar Valley.
Yes, absolutely, and
Old
that's
Keelan.
Sheldamar Valley, my domain. Exactly, and that's what I say. But here are the 2 giveaways tonight. Do Den of Thieves and the Shady Dragon Inn. Sound good?
There we go.
Both very good references. All right, so we'll do both those.
That
2
answers
times.
the question, Glamour.
Yep. There you go. We'll have some nice ones of those. It's good to see everyone as we're getting rolling here, and older stuff. Older stuff. Chaos. I mean, that's so reprints of the older stuff. You can really dig in when you get some Greyhawks things. Like Patrick gave me a boatload of stuff, and in future, this is one of our favorite ones. We'll do this at a future time. This book is wonderful. This with all the adventures in it, it really delves into. This is a hidden gem in the 2E era of Greyhawk.
Literally treasures of Greyhawk.
Yeah, literally treasures of Greyhawk in that one. And when we have Ed Greenwood